And I really want to keep this going, into the future. Like every single week, I think it'd be awesome if we could create some really special group of people around the world coming together every single week to, just be discussing some of the more important ideas around what it means to be an effective human being. And so I guess I wanted to start with, I've got some notes here. I wanted to start with discussing where I see this group going down the line, because I think that it's probably good that we set some sort of aim with what this is going to be. And then after that, I'll probably open up, probably a discussion would be awesome, around a specific question. But for now, I'll talk about the aim. So I've really been trying to think about what I can offer you guys in this kind of setting that you couldn't get from, say, the podcast or say the Facebook group and things like that. This group right here, I want this to be a regular thing that I do for my Patreon supporters, where we have sort of like somewhat of a structure to it that offers you the opportunity to, well, I guess I'll go through what I want it to give us. So weekly meetups. So I want this to be a regular thing, because, lasting change only happens when it's a regular, recurring practice, I guess. And I want us to get a lot of value out of these sessions where we can have these discussions around really meaningful topics. I want each session to kind of be based around, and also want all of your input on this as well, seeing as you're the first ones here. I want each session to be based around a specific question. Today's question, I've decided, is going to be, what helps you in times of difficulty? And obviously ahead of time, I'd like to be, sharing these questions with everybody, making sure that we know what we're going to be discussing so that we can think about this. But I think this is probably a pretty open question that we can all discuss right now, because it's pretty easy to find the answers. But I think having that question there, that I can formulate before the session, will allow us to really go a little bit deeper, dig below the surface of these questions around what it means to be a good human, be an effective human, and allow us to get the opinions and input from everybody within the group about those questions and what they would say as well. So I think that's important to open it to discussion. One thing that I've also been thinking, I really would like to bring guests onto the Practical Stoic Meetup, to do interviews with them and allow you guys the opportunity as well. Even if I said, hey, everybody gets one question, or, everybody can have some sort of input if they like. I just think it'd be great to, even as a follow-up to having them on the podcast, to then having them here for whether it's like a half-hour, 45-minute discussion, where we can kind of go a little bit deeper with the Patreon supporters there, asking questions as well. Something else as well is, I think that something that you guys obviously will be getting from the podcast is, you get the interviews. I go a little bit deeper into some of the topics by, writing. At the moment, I'm really finding a lot of value in writing and then recording what I've written. That's something that allows me to really delve a little bit deeper into the ideas and figure out what I actually think about them. So that's what you get out of the podcast, is a little bit of a deeper look into Stoicism. But maybe something that we can get here is essentially the ability for us to all come together and wrestle with these ideas. Not necessarily say that this is the way or this is the way, but just to say, here's an idea, let's all discuss it, and together we can have our own input to see if we can come to some sort of conclusion on, or like a resolution on the idea. So I really want that discussion aspect there, where we can wrestle with ideas as opposed to just kind of talking about them. A couple of other things. I just want this to be fun. I don't want it to be a super serious environment. I like to have fun. I like to laugh. I like to enjoy things. So I want this to be a place where we all just feel very comfortable being ourselves, feel very comfortable opening up and having discussions, and like Seneca said, it shows a lighter spirit to laugh at life than to bemoan it. And I guess the last thing that I'd say here that would be within my aim with this group, I think there should be monthly challenges as well, and even weekly challenges, which Ashley McCall, who's in the group as well, he's probably going to talk a little bit about that later too. But the Stoics encouraged us to practice poverty, for example, like once a month, hey, just go without for a certain amount of time and learn what that means, learn what that feels like. I think that this group here would be a perfect opportunity for us to actually challenge ourselves and say, okay, as a group, we're going to, at the end of the month, whether it's fast for 2 days, if you're in the physical condition that you can, or we're going to donate 10% of our earnings in 1 week to a charity that we all choose would be good, or like something where we can all actually contribute and learn and challenge ourselves to actually implement these strategies that we talk about in Stoicism. So I guess that's all that I see this becoming. Now I want to open it up to you guys before we have the official, the question and the discussion, and I have a little bit of a chance to speak more. Open to you guys. What do you think about what I've said so far about the vision for where we should take this, and what would you like to get out of these sessions? Anyone can start. Oh, everyone's quiet. Nobody wants to. No one wants to budge.
I'll go first.
Well, yeah. Okay, we'll go to Tanya there.
Yeah. Hi. So hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Cornelius. I guess you can see that. I live in Connecticut in the United States. And I am new to this. A lot of these principles and practices of Stoicism, it's amazing that I see that probably I've been closer to it than I even realized, but I wouldn't have called it Stoicism at the time. But so anyway, I'm here largely, Simon, because I want to learn. I want to learn more about it. I want to, Simon knows this, but I like very practical things, so definitely steeped in education, but I love the practicality of Stoicism. And so I'm here to learn, and as much as we can challenge ourselves to put some of these things that we're learning or I'm learning into practice, that makes it all real to me. So that's kind of why I'm here.
Yeah, awesome. So learning, really having the opportunity to go a little bit deeper into your learning and apply the principles. I love it.
Yes.
That's definitely a direction I want to take it. And there's an element of accountability, right, as well, because when you're in a group, everybody expects that everybody has the responsibility now to be accountable to the group, and as much as I don't want it to be a disciplinary thing, I don't think that's always helpful to just be like, you have to do this, and if you don't do it, then you're bad. Like, I think that what it can be is an opportunity for us to hold ourselves accountable and say, cool, now I know that I'm going to be meeting every week in this Stoic Meetup group, and I know that we're going to be discussing these principles that we should be enacting, and maybe I should live up to that ideal. So I appreciate that as well, Tanya. And Tanya's got a wonderful podcast as well, everybody, called Your Aha Life. I want to make sure I get that right. And just did an interview on there as well. She's a wonderful person, so check out that podcast too. But I think, Gabriel, were you the one who was going to mention something as well?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the accountability. I like the accountability of the group. Left to my own devices, when I'm not at work, I'm inherently lazy and easily distracted. So I do tend to neglect some of my own personal studies as far as my own growth. And then having the group and being able to talk to like-minded individuals, I find a lot of trouble associating with people that think on a broader spectrum in my daily life. So just being accountable and being able to come here and discuss some of these ideas and questions with you guys. And I like the idea of the weekly or monthly challenges. I like to often give myself challenges, whether it be fasting or training for a marathon or whatever it is. So I like the idea of being able to give back out, project that out and more into not only personal growth, but community growth.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I like what you say about kind of narrowing narrowing it down into talking to people who also understand, you might say, understand the ideas that you're learning. Because I know that honestly, it can almost be lonely out there when you're kind of studying philosophy. You're trying to really understand some of these really important questions in life. These are really important questions. And when we live in a society where the mass crowd doesn't even think about these questions, doesn't have a desire to think about these questions, it can be kind of lonely going out there, and nobody that you speak to almost is willing to have those conversations. And it's not as if I would never want to become the kind of person who cannot have a regular conversation, or who cannot just talk about the silly things in life, or the, you might say, the unimportant things in life. Because honestly, sometimes the unimportant things in life are the most important things. Like, it's just, you've got to release, and you've just got to, I don't know, like, it's hard to explain. But I think that the value of coming here, without making it, a thought bubble where we all end up just thinking the same thing, I think the value is coming here and wrestling with the ideas, and not necessarily saying that this is the right way or this is the right way, but just saying, if there was a right way, what would it be? Let's try and figure out some questions here. So I think that's a good point there. Did anybody else want to add anything about where they would like this group to go? But yep, Jacek?
Right, can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can actually. We're very well.
Nice one. So greetings from Poland.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Invite. Yeah, it's midnight here. Thank you for the invite on the group. I am new to the group. I have never spoken to anyone practicing Stoicism before. I have never been part of the Stoic group before, so I don't know what to expect. But I am very intrigued. I have experiences working in other contexts, and I understand how essential the support of the group is when you are on a certain path. And I would certainly not be interested just in the discussion group. So practical approach certainly resonates with me. It needs to be practical. It needs to be structured. It needs to have certain specific tasks. And when you use the word challenge, that resonated very deeply with me. I think it's a fantastic technique. So I am just, I am here for the first time. I'm kind of dipping my finger in the water. I'm not making any commitments, but I'm very intrigued in hearing more about it. So yeah, once again, thank you very much. And it's good to be
of course.
Here. Yeah.
No, it's wonderful to have you here. And honestly, I think that challenge direction is where we will head as well. And in terms of the structure, that's exactly why I wanted to open it up at the start and say, what do you guys think would be a good structure? I see it as, I think my ideal session, and you guys can tell me whether you think this is a poor format or not, but I think it'd be good to, okay, so we start with, maybe I'll come on, I'll offer the question of the day, whatever it is, the question of the week. Here's what we're going to be discussing today. I'll offer my 2 cents on the matter. I'll, offer maybe a 5 to 10 minute little spiel, and then open it to discussion where we can all wrestle with these ideas. And then at the end, we kind of discuss, okay, what's the challenge for the next week going to be? And then, maybe even what's the challenge of the month this month going to be? And then we can all have a discussion about the previous week's challenge, how we went with it, how we feel about the results that we've seen from it. Not that you can really see massive results in a week of doing anything, but it's still good to discuss the challenges and the opportunities of doing those kinds of actions. So yeah, I love that. Thank you for your input. And before I jump into the official kind of, you might call it a lesson, did anybody else want to add anything that they would like to see going forward? Excellent. Okay, cool. We'll move on then. So as I said earlier, the question that I kind of wanted to ask today is, what helps you during times of difficulty? And this is something that I've been really interested in learning more about in the past few weeks, especially. Obviously, we're going through one of the most interesting and devastating times in humanity. It's like, it's been genuinely strange to me, because a few months ago I said on the podcast, like, the 20s, it's going to bring some of the biggest opportunities and the biggest threats that we've ever seen in history, right? And then, you know, when all this happens, I was like, wow, that happened really fast. Like we're in the 20s, we're straight into one of the biggest pandemics that we've ever seen. And well, you know, there's a lot of interesting moving parts. I think the most interesting thing to me has been watching people from afar and watching how the crowd acts during all of this, because that can really tell you something probably about how you act, and also about how you would act in the future if you're not exactly conscious of the fact that you're acting in that way. And it can give you a little bit of a taste of what humanity is like during times of trial. And I've also been trying to pay attention to myself and trying to pay attention to what brings me a sense of calm amidst all of this chaos, right? And I have to admit from the start that I'm very, very fortunate. I live in probably one of the best. Okay, I'm going to say Australia is the best country in the world, but America will always be number one. Like, it's like to me, I think Australia is like is absolutely amazing. They're handling the crisis really well. Australians are just super chilled out, right? But they're still following kind of the direction of the government. And I think that there's nowhere I'd rather be, because honestly, in a chaotic situation, Australians are pretty hardy people and they don't tend to panic that quickly. But what's really interesting looking at all of this is, despite the fact that I'm very fortunate and I live in a good place, and I've got savings, and I feel like I'm in a good position, it's still interesting to look at the things that make me even more confident and even more calm amidst all of this chaos that's happening. And so for me, I kind of came up with 4 big ones that have worked for me. And then once I've told you these, I'm going to open it up to you guys to have a discussion about what you think has been most helpful for you. But the first one, I think, has been laughter. That's something that I have just found is absolutely invaluable in any difficult time in my life. And I think that we see in humanity that it's also vitally important for humanity as well. The ability to look at a situation, and despite the chaos of the situation, to be able to find laughter and joy in moments, you know. I guess my favorite moment so far, I have to tell you a quick story. The other night I was going to go out for a run, and so, you know, I'm trying to get some exercise in. You never really come into contact with many people while you're out there running, especially now. But it was nighttime, and I'd just eaten some almonds, and as sometimes happen, an almond got stuck in my throat, little chip of the almond. So I'm coughing, right? And I'm coughing up a storm, like really loud. And it was bad. And we live in an apartment complex, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my neighbors are going to be like, they're going to be horrified right now. They're going to be thinking, is he going to give us this coronavirus? What's going on? So I said to Jen, listen, okay, I'm coughing too much. I'm going to sit at the piano. I'm going to jam for a little bit. I'm going to play some music. I'll chill out, give it about 5-10 minutes for everybody to forget about what they just heard. And then I'll sneak out the door, and I'll, you know, and I was about to say, and then I'll go on my run and enjoy. And my wife, Jen, she just, in that moment there, she thought of the worst possible thing that she could do to that plan. And she just said, and then I'm going to yell out the window, hey, everybody, don't forget that you can transfer the coronavirus via your breath, right? Just as I'm leaving the house there. And I absolutely lost it in that moment, because like, she, in this moment where like, I'm trying to be like, listen, I've got to be calm, right? I don't want anybody to freak out. She's like, what's the worst thing that I could possibly do to make this super embarrassing for him, right? And so I think that you've got to find these pockets of laughter, these pockets of joy amidst all of this chaotic situation, so that because even Seneca said, to laugh at life shows the lighter side of your spirit. You know, it's so important to find joy, to find laughter in moments of that, like that in life. The second thing that I think for me has been the biggest one is gratitude. And honestly, this comes from a few things. It comes from an understanding of history, and I have a very limited understanding of history. But what I do know is that if it wasn't for, what I do know is that we've all been through this before in the past, like as humanity. We've all been through much worse times than this before. And that gives you a sense of gratitude for the strength of humanity, the strength of individuals to overcome. It's like that quote from Marcus Aurelius where he says, you will use the same powers of reasoning to face today that you did yesterday and the day before. Like, there's something within us as humanity, as individuals, that allows us to get through very difficult times and come out stronger on the other side. And so having an understanding of the history of humanity, the history that we've been through crappy times before, has been invaluable to me. And I guess also, has anybody listened to the interview with David Ropeik yet? Anybody listen to that one? Okay, if you haven't, definitely jump on there. It's the newest one on the podcast. So David Ropeik, I actually got him on. Sorry, it's a little bit chilly in here. I'm just getting my blanket off. So he is a Harvard instructor, used to be a Harvard instructor. He's written a book called Risk, or How Risky Is It Really? And I saw him on the Bill Maher show, and then I emailed him and said, you've got to come on the show, because he comes from a background dealing with the psychology and biology of risk perception. So having that conversation with him really helped me to see that humanity will always act in what they think is the best interests of humanity, because biologically we are just instinctively made to do that, right? Like if you watch humanity at the moment, everybody's in a heightened state of panic, heightened state of awareness. And that's actually a purely evolutionary biological state that helps us to deal with chaotic situations. And so listen to that interview, and I think that it'll give you a good perspective of how we will actually get through times like these. I guess the last two things that I want to say is education has been invaluable to me as well in times like these where everything seems uncertain in the future. I think that it's so important to focus on your own personal growth, at least for me. So I'm spending a lot more time, listening, a lot more time reading, trying to write as well. I found that one thing that I really want to do right now is just write as much as possible. And that's been really helpful for me. But I think that, when the world gets busy panicking, it's really helpful if you can get busy growing, if you can get busy trying to figure out how you can come out of this a stronger, better person. And I guess also just leaving room for thinking as well. This is something that I've really been thinking about lately. I think if all that you ever do is study and listen and study and listen and study and listen, and don't give yourself time to actually think and to process, then, I mean, you're not really fully, I guess, embodying the principles. You're not actually getting them into your mind in a practical way. And so I think I've found it so helpful to actually, a lot of the time, just to shut off the podcasts, to shut off the YouTube, to shut off even my reading, and just to spend time considering the ideas, right? Just spend time just thinking, okay, how's humanity acting at the moment? What does that mean? And then what does that mean? And then what does that mean? Just constantly asking the right questions that lead you to as far as you can go in terms of thinking about how to act in a time like this. And I guess the final thing that I wanted to mention, I was originally thinking that I was only going to talk about this today, because I got up and I decided to get up and go watch the sunrise, but it was cloudy, so there was no sunrise, but it was still nice. So I rode my bike up to the beach this morning, went onto the beach to watch everything, and I was listening to an interview with Viktor Frankl. Has everybody listened, or has anybody read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning yet? Yep. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, definitely. It's a must read.
It's a must read. It's so good. And I might even post a link for you guys in the Patreon group to a video that I watched this morning. It was an interview with him, and it was freaking interesting. It was so good. But I really think that the thing that always gets me through a time that is sort of uncertain in my life is when I have a very strong aim, right? When I have something that I know I need to achieve or something that I need to move towards. And this is the message that Viktor Frankl really teaches. He was actually in a concentration camp during World War II, and he survived that. And what he discovered was that the thing that really gets people through difficult times is when they have some very strong meaning. And he actually said this. It was actually brilliant. He came up with essentially a code for suffering, right? And he said, it's basically D equals S minus M, which means distress equals suffering minus meaning. So if you're suffering, which we all are, because that's all that life is constant suffering. That's what every religion teaches, every major philosophy teaches. Like, life is suffering. You need to deal with it, right? But how do you deal with the suffering? So Viktor Frankl would say, you know, the distress that you would feel in your life, or, you know, the having like a crappy life, is really all about going through the suffering without any meaning. So if you can find that really strong purpose for you to cling to during times of distress in your life, that's going to be the antidote to living a life that is only chaos, right? Is only suffering, only stress and anxiety. So for me, honestly, I'm so incredibly grateful that last year I made the choice to leave my job. It's like, not many people right now would be saying, I'm so grateful to not have a job. I think I'm actually saying that because I gave up my job in order to pursue something that was so much bigger than what I would have been achieving there. And that's what this is to me. So this new, I guess this new revamp of the podcast and this new desire of mine to really go deeper into Stoicism, that's the thing that every single day I get up and I think about it. And I think about it every night before I go to bed. I think about it all throughout the day. I'm constantly looking for ways that I can try to improve that. That's why we're doing this right now, because I want to make sure that I'm building a community with everybody, speaking with everyone, and helping to, I guess, improve the experience of as many people as possible. So I guess those are my four main areas that I think have been most helpful to me. That's laughter, gratitude, education, and having some sort of strong meaning, some aim. But I really want to open it up to you guys. And I think, Ashley, you were going to pop in there for a moment, and I kept on talking. But you wanted to. I want to open up to you. Maybe what do you think you have found to be most helpful during these times?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. And
Hey, introduce
also,
yourself, actually, mate.
yeah, and well, I was just going to say as well, everyone here, you know, well done for taking the time out for yourself, for your practice, and to connect with everyone around and to become a more efficient Stoic, a better practitioner. So well done, everyone. It's great to have you.
Yeah.
So I'm from Perth. I'm Western Australia, and so I can concur about that. It's a pretty good place to be right now. I'm definitely being sheltered from everything that's going on around the world. Yeah, pain is totally inevitable. Right with you on that one. Yeah. So, and going back forward, sort of opening up. What got me interested in a call like this is, you know, because I've been doing Stoicism since 2016. I made a commitment that I wanted to live the Socratic lifestyle and follow in the mission to know thyself. And it's not very often that you come around people sort of doing something similar. So it's really great to chat and connect with other people who've taken that same path in life, I suppose. And there's lots of little ins and outs of practicing and applying Stoicism that I think is really useful to be able to, you know, to kind of take on from other people. Like kind of like I don't know how to describe. There's lots of paradoxes and lots of kind of like meta application type of things that you need to look out for. That I think it would be a huge boost to be able to chat to people regularly. And I mean, I've definitely made mistakes in the way that I've applied and practiced my Stoicism that's taken sort of years to kind of figure out, because, you know, no one else is doing this sort of stuff, and all the material that's out there is kind of from the theoretical point of view. And when it comes to actually getting down and doing it, and then talking about what results did you get, what kind of effects did all this sorts of things. So that's going to be really, really awesome to have a regular bunch of people where we can all check in and say, yeah, you know, which practice and techniques have you found the most effective in particular? Like, we all know theoretically about their benefits, but, you know, what kind of situations do you find this one really useful, and all this sorts of thing. So yeah, and I reckon as well as a study group would be really cool. Like, if, you know, we could, you know, once a month go through one chapter of the meditations or something like that, and sort of really dig into it and delve into it and create a relationship with that text. That's sort of my approach to sort of the theoretical stuff anyway, is that you have to form a relationship with it, because otherwise it just goes in and out. And it's like the emotional, we learn emotionally. So you have to, when you form a connection with the information or a text or something like that, that's what I've found helps it to stick. As well as what you're saying before about digesting it and sort of mulling over it for yourself, and which is where, writing, it really helps, because then you have to actually, you see the gaps in your understanding, and then you realize, of course, that, you know, the more you know, the less you know, kind of thing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So this. Oh yeah.
Well, I just wanted to add one thing. So apart from having by far the best hair in the group at the moment, Ashley is also he is also the host of a Stoic Meetup group over in Perth, and also like a habits meetup group. And you know, we've done coaching and stuff before, and like, Ashley, he goes deep into these subjects. Like, he goes really deep, which is awesome. And he's actually going to be running in the Facebook group, the Practical Stoic Mastermind. Ashley's going to be running every week a different challenge for people to do for that week. So I think that will actually coincide with what we'll do here. But I think you also make a very good point about the community aspect, right? Because it's one of the reasons why it's so important to get together as a group and to discuss these things is because, honestly, there are as many ways of conceptualizing how to live a good life as there are people to conceptualize how to live a good life, right? Everybody has a different worldview. Everybody has a different life experience. You know, look at us here. You know, we've got people in America, Poland, you know, and Eric, you're in London, right? And we've got Perth, and sorry, Eric, where are you? I will come back to you. But you know, the great thing about this is that we can all share our unique experiences. And, you know, I used to be really into like personal development books, and I still am, right? I used to be really into those, like here's how to do it, here's how to live a good life, right? But I've been thinking lately, one of the great things about the ancient philosophers is I don't think they necessarily gave us a step-by-step guide how to live a good life. What they showed us was how to wrestle with ideas, how to think about ideas, and how to think about having a good life, right? So I think that it's almost disingenuous to say, here's a step-by-step guide for how to live your life, because how do you know that that works for everyone? You haven't talked to everybody and put them through your magical plan for how to live a good life. You don't know that they're all going to get the exact same results. But I think that the value in philosophy is that it's such an open-ended pursuit, because it's just the love of wisdom. That's all it is. It's not the love of an exact step-by-step plan for how to live your life. It's the love of trying to figure that out. And I genuinely don't think that anybody has figured out the complete plan for how to live a good life. but many people have wrestled with that idea, and that's what's powerful. And so I think that's what's good about coming together as a community, as social animals, which we are. We can wrestle with these ideas, we can try to figure it out, and we can offer input. you know we evolved from tribes that would sit in circles, and laugh and tell stories, and like if that's where we evolved from, it makes sense that we would have to be doing a similar thing right now. And if I can just ramble for one more moment, that's the thing that I always felt. So when I left the church when I was younger, I used to be a Mormon, and when I left it, with absolutely no resentment whatsoever, but when I did leave it, I remember feeling like, if I could go to a place where I could get that sense of community, if I could go somewhere where I could get that sense of, I care about you and you care about me, and we just want to be better people, that would be great. But at the moment, the only real institutions in the world that have that really nailed down really well are religious institutions. So they all have their message, that they all have their step-by-step guide for how to live your life, right? But I really think that we need more places and communities where we can come together and simply discuss ideas, and simply discuss like, hey, I care about you and you care about me, and we're going to show that by helping each other to progress. So I think that that's a lot of value about coming. That's a lot of value in coming to groups like this. But did anybody else want to add anything to the discussion about what's helpful to them during times like these? I'd love to get some input.
Oh, I was gonna add something to what you actually just said.
Yep, we got John down
my
here.
name's,
Yep, and John,
yeah,
feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from as well.
yeah, my name's John. I am from Southern California, so it's not extremely hectic here. Um,
Yeah.
but I did have quite a few hectic things happen to me in the last couple weeks. As California kind of started shutting down and was more strictly enforcing the social distancing, I got my backpack stolen, which had my laptop and my textbook for school. All my classes turned into online, so all the homework kind of just came in a wave. At the same time, I started experiencing some symptoms, so I had to distance myself from my family. And then I started getting like more serious symptoms, so I had to go to the hospital, not the hospital, but I had to go see a doctor. So a lot of things like that. But anyways,
Yeah,
so
oh my gosh, losing your laptop and your textbooks, and that's the thing, like
yeah,
we live in modern times, right? And so like honestly, the thing about being in a country like America is you're probably not going to be chased by a lion, but
yeah,
in your current situation, in your current society that you live in, losing your laptop and losing your textbooks just before you go into quarantine to then go online to learn, and also getting this virus and everything, it's like that's a whole lot to deal with, right? That's a whole lot
yeah.
to handle with what you're going through. But yeah, tell us what has helped you most.
Yeah, so actually, I wanted to kind of point out something that you said, where there's not really like like a process that you follow that is a one size fits all. I Something that resonated with me a lot with Stoicism was the ability to rationalize, and using that as like a core to live a better life. And like the one of the biggest part about rationalization is trying to figure out what to do, which way is the right way at any given situation, and I know like every Stoic will kind of say a different thing, and I think being able to dive deeper into certain ideas and seeing why different paths are right is a great way to approach it. Yeah, I think like so far a lot of conversations I've had with other people have been a little bit more on the surface. So something that I liked about what you brought up in this group was the ability to dive deeper into specific questions. So because we learn, I think there was a quote: "Any fool can learn from their own experience. It takes a true master to learn from other people's experiences, something along those lines. But
Yeah.
so that's something that got me a little bit excited about this group in general.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate that. And that's exactly right. Like, it just, I think that the question of like, what would a Stoic do in this situation is a thing of the past, because I think that we need to stop looking at Stoicism as a one size fits all for everything. We need to look at it as essentially the starting point for a more effective way to think about the world, right? So I think that even Seneca said, you know, like there's yet to be a monopoly on truth. Truth lies open to everybody, and there's still plenty more for the future generations to discover. And what I've discovered lately is that if you follow the questions long enough, what you realize is that we really don't know anything at all, right? We don't know we don't know the first thing about what this planet is, what this universe is, what we are. And there's so many questions that even science has not even begun to answer fully, right? And so I think that the thing, honestly, the thing that really gets in our way the most is our rationality. It's our biggest strength, and it's also our biggest weakness, because our rationality is the thing that also leads us to believing that we are always right, that we always have the answers, right? Because we are rational beings and we can always come up with the right answer if we just think about it long enough. We don't have any idea what the right answer is. But what the Stoics did was they gave us essentially a framework to kind of think about the world. So they said, okay, well, hey, listen, there are some things that are outside of your control, and that's pretty clear that they're outside of your control. And then there's some things that are in your control. And so, like, that's not necessarily a guide to life as much as it is a process for thinking about how to live life, right? And so I think that it's important to recognize that Stoicism is not just a step-by-step guide. I think that it's actually better framed as a framework for thinking about life. And there's so many questions that we still have to answer. And that's what's great about the modern Stoicism movement, is I think that we need to move in the direction of questioning, I guess, of learning from as many different people as we can from different disciplines about what they see life as, what they see as an effective human being. And if we can learn from them, then we can probably add to Stoicism, you know, like we can add to this constantly growing and expanding set of guidelines for life, you might say. But yeah, John, thanks so much for sharing that. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to share around what's been helpful for them? Yep, Neil?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Simon, for letting me join this meeting and for meeting you, all of you. My name is Neil. I am from Venezuela, actually, from South America. And I just wanted to share how I found myself learning about Stoicism. It was only maybe in October last year that I found myself, maybe by chance, I don't know. I am trying to realize how did I match this philosophy in my life, because it has been very helping for me in the last 6 months, maybe. I live in a country, Venezuela, with a very difficult situation. Not now because of maybe the coronavirus. We are all suffering, but maybe over the last 20 years, the political situation has been very critical for us. And the last maybe 3, 4, 5 years has been very, very chaotic. And that has been putting a lot of weight on our heads, you know, preoccupations. Every day we have we have troubles to start every day. So over the past maybe 2 years, I have been coping with how to sort these difficulties. And by chance, I found Stoicism, as I told you, around October last year. It was my 40th birthday, and I deep, I deep, very deep. I dive very deep into the teachings of Stoicism by guys like your podcast, which was one of them. Podcast from, for example, Ryan Holiday, Donald Robertson, Massimo Pigliucci, and I have read the books from Ryan Holiday as well, from Donald Robertson. Man's Search for Meaning was a very, very touching book. I had the chance also to visit Dachau outside of Munich, a concentration camp. And it was an experience I cherish. I have a deep connection in that visit I had. So, in short, what I was trying to communicate with you guys, this meeting you are putting up today is like a store. You know, it's like our virtual store where we can all share, and it's very interesting to share the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, 2,000 years later. We have the same troubles, some may say, the same problems of our head. And I think this is something that, in my case, I hope will be for the long run. Okay, so as many of you guys have said, taking a little bit of your point of view on Stoicism, Simon, taking a little bit of Donald Robertson, taking a little bit of Massimo Pigliucci, of Ryan Holiday, it only grows. It has a compound effect on our teaching and how we put that teachings in practice in our everyday lives. And I want to thank you for this opportunity, and hope for all of us for Stoicism to make the best of us every day. Thank you.
No, of course. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Neil. And you obviously bring a really unique worldview. This is what I'm saying. It's so great that we can talk to people from all around the world. Neil, you're in, Venezuela, and honestly, I don't know the first thing about what's going on over there, other than to say that I know that it's probably not the best thing in the world. It's not the best situation, and there's a lot of people suffering, and so I personally want to get a better knowledge of what's happening around the world. But you, in your current situation, Neil, what have you found most helpful about Stoicism in terms of your own personal, to use the cheesiest phrase in the book, your own personal power within your situation, right? Because when you're dealing with governments, it's like, how much power do you really have, right? But what do you control in your situation currently?
Well, that's a very good question, because of for example, two years ago, the first thing that I can point out here is that today, in 2020, we are full of information. Information reaches without us having to look for it. We have Twitter feeds, we have podcasts, we have website, we have radio stations. There is a lot of information coming to us, and that can overwhelm us. And one of the first measures I had to take was to filter information. Even WhatsApp is crazy. So many people sending tons of messages with no information, not valuable information at all. So one of the first things I do is to filter information, and that teaching of Stoicism that tells us that we need to care for the things that we can control, and the things that are out of control, there is nothing you can do about it. The result take care of itself. I mean,
Yeah.
and what I have learned from Stoicism is that I need, or I can do the best of me with my everyday actions, and the score will take care of itself. I mean, it doesn't work for me to be worried about what a politician will do, because it's out of my reach, it's out of my control. But I can take a very calm attitude in my in my everyday life, knowing that every day that I go to work, every day that I meet with my friends, with my family, I do the best of me in regards of my principles, in regards of my values. And that is something that Stoicism has helped me a lot to, to gain that conscience that there are some things that are out of your control, and that there is nothing you can do about it. So
Yeah, I love that. I really
be,
appreciate that answer, because what you said there as well, which is really important. This is so important, and I think you just put it in a way that really helps me to draw connections between a few other ideas. Is if you do what you can, then the results will take care of themselves. That's the best way to put it. And the interesting thing is that idea there doesn't just exist in Stoicism. I was just reading yesterday, because I'm very interested in the connections between Stoicism and, say, biblical ideas and ideas in Taoism, and found all over the world. And that idea that you say that the results will take care of themselves is also written in the Bible, in the phrase where they say, so what is it? It's like, if God will take care of the grass of the field today that is now thrown into the furnace, won't he also take care of you? So it's like, if you have faith that if you control what you can control, focus on day-to-day activities, doing what you can control, then the results will take care of themselves, like as they have always done for humanity, because we're here now on computers talking to each other on the other side of the world. Like, we've evolved to such a high degree, and things do just take care of themselves if you focus on what's really important, right? Like, if you focus on the most important things in the world, in your life, what you can control, honestly, the rest of it, as much as I don't want to say you don't need to worry about it, it's like, this idea has been taught all over the world, that, and it doesn't make sense that every single creature on Earth and every single plant on Earth would just naturally exist and flourish on this planet, and yet we don't have this inbuilt compass. We don't have this inbuilt ability to just make things work if we focus on what's important. How you doing there, Ash? What's going on?
Oh, I'm just grabbing the wall. Sorry.
I was so confused. You're like giving me the mean grin. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that, Neil.
I can turn the mic off.
No, that's all good. Matthew, you've turned on your video since, and welcome to the discussion as well. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? I wasn't sure because you turned your video on.
Oh, greetings from Reno, Nevada, here in the Western U.S.
Great to have you here, mate.
Yeah, no, it's excellent to be here. Just to throw in a couple things, it was that sense of control that, especially in these crazy times, I think has helped me the most, or understanding what I can control and what I cannot control. So I don't want to repeat too much what has been said, but for me personally, that's really been the most helpful aspect of Stoicism that I've utilized, I think, in this past week or so.
Matthew, what do you think is the balance for you between understanding what you can control and understanding what you can't control? Because personally, for me, I actually think that I've found the most value in trying to let go of everything that I can't control. Like, for me, the past few months for me has been a process of trying to gradually get rid of everything that's unnecessary, right? Everything that's unimportant in my life, and to leave room for what is actually important. But I know that a lot of Stoicism focuses almost exclusively on what you can control, and almost leaves the what you can't control to the side and just says, forget about it. And that's all they say. But for you, what have you found most valuable about that idea, and what's the ratio of control and not control in your view?
It's a good question. You know, I think sort of where my journey with Stoicism began was just sort of that, and I think where a lot of us might come from is, you know, finding a sense of contentment. I found stress and anxiety really, I think, overwhelming me in a lot of things, and it was a matter of, well, let me see if I can rein this in a little bit. And so it really was just being very critical of all the things that were causing me to lose sleep, and to really put them in their place, to understand that, yeah, you know, this is something that you know, I can't be responsible for, or I can't control. And just by saying that and acknowledging that, and facing all these things that were perhaps giving me anxiety, and it was always that the test for me was, you know, going to sleep at night or waking up in the morning. If I was going to sleep with those feelings or that anxiety, well, let's see what I can do to sort of make those things go away. And waking up energized to actually have a good day and to try to be the best person that I could be, just by focusing on myself, because ultimately that is what I could control. Yeah.
And Matthew, you're the firefighter, right?
No, actually, I'm a physician, but.
Oh, who's the firefighter in here? We oh yeah, Gabriel at the top. That's right. Yeah, sorry, I got confused there. But well, firstly, Matthew, thank you for sharing with us as well. I appreciate that. And you know, actually, how many of us are from America here? Because I know that most of the audience is from America. So we go, yeah, one. Okay, well, not me, but yeah, awesome. And Gabriel, I did want to bring you into the discussion because as a firefighter, you know, you're obviously often on the front line of these kinds of events, these kinds of catastrophes.
Yeah.
What do you find most valuable in Stoicism, or any idea really, when you're dealing with chaos?
Well, what I learned was through our training as a firefighter or a paramedic, we rush in to the scene a lot. We act fast, we think fast, and we get our hands dirty. And since this whole thing started, we've turned a 180 on that philosophy of care. And now we think about ourselves first, make sure we're safe before we rush into anything. And not that we didn't do that before, but now it's just more highlighted. So I've learned to slow it down and to be all in. And if I'm at the station, I'm all in with training or whatever we're doing. But when the tones drop and I go on the call, I'm all in. And then especially when my shift's over and I get to go home, I'm all in at home. I'm not carrying.
Yeah.
This whole pandemic has helped me draw that line. I don't take work home, and I don't bring home to work. I try to keep those very separate. When I'm home, I'm all in. I'm all in with my family. When I'm at dinner, if I'm cooking dinner with my wife, we're all in. And then I turn the TV off. I turn the news off. I don't watch the news when I come home. Nothing changes that drastically in a day-to-day through this that I need to have the news on. So I try to forget about work and the whole pandemic as much as I can while I'm at home. And then I go to work and I deal with it, hands-on, training, dealing with whatever we have to deal with there. But the big thing that really helps me is the finality of it all. It will come to an end. Whether we flatten the curve, whether I get sick and die, or the virus wins, there's always going to be an end somewhere. So if I just focus on what I have in my hands right now, the end will take care of itself, whatever it is, whether we create a vaccine or whatever happens, there will be an end somewhere. I don't need to know what that ending is yet, because I'm living the story with my hands right now. So I just try to stay it's thinking short and long term at the same time, basically, you know, just trying to keep it all contained right now. So that's basically how I get every day.
I appreciate that. that idea of being 100% in, whether you're at work or at home. I heard that a while ago in a talk by somebody. I can't remember what it was, but they were basically just saying there's no such thing as balance. There is only focus on where you are, right? Like when you're at work, you don't want to be thinking about work. That's how you achieve balance, what you'd call it. And then when you're at home, that's such a brilliant idea. But that's really hard to do, right? Like, what do you think what's your process for doing that? Because I mean, I think we can all agree that when you want to be somewhere, it's like almost impossible. Like when you're trying to be somewhere, but your mind keeps on going somewhere else, it's almost impossible to shut that off. How do you do that?
I remember my wife gave my son a long time ago some advice about anxiety, and she told him to touch something that's real. So I just try to focus in on whatever is at my hands right now. Like right now, being a part of this group, I'm all in on this. You know, I'm not distracted. I mean, I did spill my coffee. I had to get a towel and stuff, but you know, I can be all in with this group right now. And when we move on and I can go sit down with a book, I can be all in with that book because it's in my hands, it's tactile, it's in front of me, and it's something I can focus on. And I don't have to, if I start thinking about the magnitude of the pandemic or my department, I work for a great department and I'm very confident in how they're handling this. But if I start thinking about those details, it's enough to create anxiety and stress and fear and everything that could hinder me making my decisions. So I really just try to look at my hands and whatever I have in them or with me or whatever I'm doing, I just try to just focus and I just try to narrow it down. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's such a different idea that I've never heard before, focusing on something physical, like what's in your hands right now. That's awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I'm all taking notes.
Nice. Just quickly, goodbye, John. Thank you so much for coming as well. I'll probably, we'll see. So Matthew and Eric, I know Sherry has been on mute for a while. I'm not sure if she wants to butt in or not, but, and also Tonya. Now, Matthew, did you want to share anything that's been helpful for you? Sorry, Tonya, I will definitely come to you. I love you. You know I do. But Matthew, did you want to share anything? I don't know if you've had a chance to speak so
far. I haven't, but I can't say I've had a whole lot to say. I'm pretty new to this whole philosophical scene, and I find it interesting. I find it interesting trying to thread the borderline between everything being so general and out there that it's completely impractical, and the go and do this for 3 minutes, followed by doing this for 6 minutes, followed by turning around 3 times and this exact prescription. Because like you said earlier, that's, my advice to new parents whenever I am talking to them is that you can't just read some book and follow what it says. You have to figure out what's right for your family. And that, and what I'm going to tell you to do is not going to be right for you because it's what worked for my family. And it's, so yeah, trying to meld those two things together and find that middle way is difficult. But I look forward to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is a challenge, right? Because naturally as human beings, we want a step-by-step process, right? We want to know exactly what needs to happen. But that's just not the reality of life. Like, you've got your own unique challenges. That's why even with my coaching, I try not to be the guy who says you need to do this, 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 and this, because honestly, I don't know the deepest, innermost fears and desires of my coaching clients. That would be my goal, to try and to get to know that. But unless I know all of that, I really don't know the first thing about exactly where they need to go. But all that we can do is kind of wrestle with a few ideas, be having these kinds of discussions, because it's like, I try to say to my clients that the way that I want them to feel after a session with me is the way that you feel when you've just had a really good, deep and meaningful discussion with a friend. You feel like you've discussed some really important topics, really meaningful topics, and after it you feel like, man, I can do this. Like I can take on some things, I can go and change some things in my life. And so I think that that's the value of these sessions, right? It's like just coming together and having that open discussion that can help you to put a few pieces together in your own life, and then you take that away, you see if it works or not, and then you come back to it. But I appreciate you being here anyway, Matthew. It's awesome.
I appreciate being here. Yeah, thank you.
Now, Eric, I don't know if you want to butt in here, but Eric, I know you're a family man. I know you've got a beautiful family over there with you. You send me the greatest pictures of them. Little rascal running around in a monster thing this morning. I can't remember what it was, but it was hilarious. What do you think has been the value for you in having this family time?
It's quite interesting. As you know, so basically, I'm in the UK. I'm 1.5 from London, but actually I'm close to Oxford. So it's more, I'm out of London where the most of the pandemic is kind of growing. For me, what is interesting is I find that I always been fascinated by the concept of confinement because my father was a prisoner for war during World War II, and my mother grew up in Paris when it was bombed by the British and the Americans and occupied by the Germans. And she had this very weird experience of growing up as a teenager where she had to live in a kind of war zone, and she would basically go to the subway, to do her homework, and having some people not being there the following day because they were killed in the bombing. And it was something that it's something that as a child I grew up with this idea. I was always fascinated by Arctic and Antarctic expedition, when you have a group of people who have to live together for a long time, as my father had to do when he was a prisoner for 4 years. He was with the same people, and he had to kind of deal with them and be in this kind of weird dynamic of group where people were always together and they didn't know when it will finish or if they will actually survive the next few months. So it's kind of interesting because I always had this kind of idea. And I worked for a long time in Nigeria, so in North Africa, where I will be 1 month inside a camp. And I think it's the same thing as people who are on a boat or something like that. And then I will be back at work, things. And last year I was by myself, and yes, my family is now here and I can work at home. And it's very interesting because this experience that I always find extraordinary, now 1/3 of humanity is in confinement and living the same experience where they have time to think and time to deal, and also a lot of stress. All the people are losing their jobs, going into debt, not only also the fear of getting sick or not being able to say goodbye to their loved one if they get sick. It's kind of interesting that we all are in the same boat and going through all this experience. And I find that fascinating is a weird word to use, but I find it's a unique experience. Maybe things will be back to normal later, but I think it will be like the crisis of 1929, in the US, or World War II. It will definitely impact a lot of people. Now, what was I find interesting, what helped me to go through, is helping me is the fact that there's less choice. And there was a book by Barry Schwartz, a psychologist, where he was kind of saying that a lot of people became unhappy if you were giving people 100 chocolates to choose from, and people you were giving 6 chocolates to choose from. During the test, the people who were having 6 chocolates to choose from were happier than the people who had 100, because all of a sudden they have all things. And the fact that you're confined to your house, well, yes, you can watch a lot of TVs, you still have a lot of choice, but you cannot go anywhere and things like that, and all your choices are limited. And for some people, it can be actually quite freeing to say, okay, you know what, it's stupid to have the fear of missing out, of not being able to go to London to see that theater or not to go to see. I mean, oh, I want to see the world. With right now, if you're a globetrotter, very unlikely that you can do these 80 countries you wanted to do in 2 years or something like that. It's basically you have to take a time out and really focus on what are the things who are important. For me, it's quite interesting because yes, as a lot of people, I'm worried about my professional and financial situation, but at the same time, I've got a day with my family, and I can work from home, and that's something I would never thought in 100 years. So
Yeah.
I find I think it's very funny that we all have this extraordinary experience that we will go through as 1/3 of humanity. And it's kind of something that if you said someone 6 months ago, oh, by the way, you have to be in house arrest for the next 2 weeks or the next 3 weeks, they would have like, wow, that's very stressful, or they would have wrote a book about it. And actually now we have over 2 billion people who will be able to say we went through the same experience and we dealt with it in a different way. And for most of them, the experience that will help them will be kind of going to this economy of choice of stoicism to say, yes, there's things I can control, what I do in my house, inside my castle, by myself, how I talk to my family, how do I react, that I can control. How I think, maybe I can control. This virus who is going around, how people are taking over groceries and things like that, that's beyond my control. So how it affects me or not, the only person thing. I found that there was a joke that we were sent for a timeout by Earth, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was my 2 cents, definitely.
No, I love it. No, I think there's 2 really big things that I got out of yours. Firstly, that idea of looking at even, our parents and our grandparents and the things that they went through. I mean, even in Stoicism, we have brilliant examples of people who went through solitude in much harsher ways, right? Like Seneca, Epictetus, these people all experienced exile. So that's like, that's not like, oh, go to your room for a few months. That's like, hey, go to an island, for a few months. Like, and so, even looking at your grandparents, your parents and what they went through is beautiful, because it's like, okay, if they can do it, then so can I. And also that's such a great way to look at it, is in there's less choice. So you're almost forced into a narrower vision of what is your life now, right? And that does things to our psychology. That's brilliant. I appreciate you sharing that, Eric. And it's always good to have you here, Eric. And guys, I know that we're kind of dropping off because we're going way over time, but I don't feel bad. Like, if you do need to go, I completely understand, but I still want to talk to Tonya and Jacek here as well, get their input here. But Tonya, for you, what's been most helpful?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And I think Sherry was also, if she's still on, she was trying to get in. I heard her voice.
Oh, really?
I heard a
Is
female
there another?
voice.
Is there a Sherry? Oh yeah, there was a Sherry. I know there was a Charlotte here as well. I'm not sure where Charlotte
Okay.
went, but yeah. Anyway, go on.
But yeah, I was thinking about, what is it? What do I do facing difficulty? How do I get through it? And a lot of the things that you mentioned, Simon, I would absolutely agree with, like gratitude, focusing on personal growth, really being at this time focused on some of my goals and aspirations. How do I seize this moment where I am in my house more than I usually am, to focus on some of those things that I say, oh, if I had more time, I would do the X. So I am focusing on
there's
that.
no excuses.
Yeah, exactly. I am a meditator. So I meditate, and I find solace and calm and peace through my meditation practice. I think also connecting with others and using these kinds of technologies to stay connected to others, because I have my dog here, but it's just me and my dog. And so connecting with others is really important to me right now. But I wanted to come off mute because your question reminded me of, Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, which was one of the early kind of books that I read as I was being interested and introduced into this kind of modern look at Stoicism, of this ancient philosophy of Stoicism. And in that book, he talks about three disciplines. He talks about the discipline of perception, the discipline of action, and the discipline of will. And so, I wanted to share that with the group. So discipline of perception is we get to control. We have choice over our perceptions and what we're going to, think about things. We have, that's a choice for us. And even Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning talks about that. And then the discipline of action, again, choice on, okay, now what are we going to do about it? What, now that we are perceiving this thing, what action are we going to take? What's going to be our response to this? And then the third one, the discipline of will, is that's where I believe for me is where my meditation, my intuition, all of that comes to bear, and my faith even comes to bear in terms of, okay, so how do I get this inner fortitude to go through these tough times? And he talks about, the discipline of perception is the discipline of the mind. The discipline of action is the discipline of the body. And the discipline of the will is the discipline of the soul. And so mind, body, soul. And so our whole being, how are we responding, and how are we using all of us, all of ourselves to go through this in a way that, addresses every one of those kinds of needs. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And guys, seriously, check out Tanya's podcast. It's freaking awesome. And you're always thinking about these big ideas, and that's a really important one. I didn't actually remember that because I have read Ryan Holiday's books, but I didn't fully grasp that when I read it. So I'm going to have to go back to that. But Jacek, did you want to add anything about the way that you're kind of dealing with this and what's been most helpful for you?
Yes, and thank you for inviting me to sharing.
Of course.
Before I say that, I would like to share an interesting experience I had, because when I encountered Stoicism, I found it very rich, it resonated with me, but initially I was just learning about the ideas, it was intellectual, still very valuable. And then I found this book, 52 Weeks of Stoic Exercises.
A handbook for new Stoics, is that the Massimo Pigliucci one?
That's the author. And and I have worked up through about 25% of that book. And my initial experience was that the first week of exercise was actually more valuable than all the reading I have done. So when this period of crisis came, I have found that without any effort at all, I already had some inner resources available. It was like already there supporting me. And I was like, wow, I really have a clear sense of what I can control in this situation and what I cannot. It was I had that sense that my perception of this is already quite clear thanks to the previous work I have done. There was that exercise where you intentionally broaden your awareness of time over ages, of what other people have experienced, and also through the whole world, like from where I am, the whole town, the country, and the world. And that image has stayed with me. So there's not much effort for me these days to apply those things. It's almost like they are there. Whatever I have integrated is already there for me. And what I also found very interesting is that I have never felt so much gratitude in a natural way as a response. So and this goes beyond just saying the words, but I actually really am grateful. I have a house. I mean, I have a flat to stay in. I have food. I have money. And I am really grateful for all those simple things. And I try to keep, and you know, the sound perspective on it. And my final thought, and this is something that I have integrated before coming across Stoicism, but I know it's a Stoic thought. Turn the disadvantage into your advantage. And that has been staying with me. And I actually, in terms of my business, I am a teacher, Alexander technique teacher. And I work with musicians. And when that crisis happened, I began offering free meetings as a way of building community. So I am kind of helping my students, old students, current students, and I'm using this to forge something new, to forge community that will, I hope, grow, and I hope it will grow beyond the current crisis. So these are my thoughts. Thank you for listening.
No, of course, Jacek. That was awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And the big thing that I want to touch on that you said, which is so important, is the practicality in a theory, right? I heard this quote recently. It was like, there's nothing more practical than a really good theory, right? And I think that that's actually true, because when you actually understand something, when you question an idea to the point where it actually internalizes and you know that it makes sense to you, then that's when it actually starts to seep into your actions. But if you start doing the discipline side of things before you've actually understood the idea, it's going to be an uphill battle. So I think that that's actually the value of having these conversations. It's an ability to get a better grasp of the theory. And then when it makes sense to you, when you can see how it would work for you, then it just seems to work, right? And as you say, like, you just, more gratitude, you know, you're feeling calmer. So I appreciate that. And now that we're at almost 50% capacity, I'm gonna offer my suggestion that we finish up here. And I just want to thank all of you so much for coming as well. This has been so much fun for the first. It's way better than what I thought the first one would be. And so what I'm going to do is today I'm going to have a think about a few, maybe like a challenge for next week, and also the discussion that we would have next week. And I'll be sending that out to all of my Patreon supporters there, coming on there. But I think this is going to be an ongoing thing that will be really valuable for a lot of people, and I'm super excited. So thank you so much to everybody. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add just before we go? Yep.
May I have a quick question, please?
Sure.
Are you planning to run these meetups at this time on this day, or?
That's a great question. What's your suggestion? Because I know that a lot of people, it's like midnight. I chose it based on the American time zones because that's where most people are. But I don't know, maybe I'll have to send an email out to the Patreon supporters and say what times would work for you, and then we'll come up with a few options. But honestly, if it gets to the stage where we've got, 50, 60, 70 people coming along to these meetings, I'm going to split it up into 2 meetings per week and say, for everyone in these time zones, we'll do it this time, for everyone in those ones. But yeah, Jacek, what time is it there for you, and what time would usually work?
Well, since I have not yet subscribed on the Patreon, I would prefer not to give my preference. I don't think I'm in a position to do that.
No, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Actually, right now in Europe, we are changing hours. So it will be, it's technically in 1 hour, it will be the hour never existed, because it will go from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
Okay.
So it's like 1 hour
in the morning.
What? It's for me, for For Jacek, I think it's 1:30 in the morning, and for me, actually, for Jacek, it doesn't exist anymore. This hour doesn't exist because it's between 1 and 2. So it's already 2 o'clock for him.
Wow, you guys are committed. This is awesome. This is
For me, it's
even more committed to me. That's great.
So Jacek, the hours never existed.
What I will say is, what I can promise is that if it turns out that more people need it in a time zone that would require me to stay up until 12, I'll just do that. I'll figure out something where it works for everyone, or at least everyone except for me. So
as a 50-year-old, I was really planning to club tonight in England, but it's really not good. So
oh man, I can't wait to come to England and go clubbing with you, Eric. It's going to be great. Well, everyone, so Ashley, Gabriel, Tanya, Eric, Jacek, thank you so much for coming along. I really appreciate you all. And I'll be sending out some emails today or tomorrow, and looking forward to the next meetups.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No worries. Ciao.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.